Hello, I'm Annavittoria Sarli. I work for the ISMU Foundation, and my presentation revolves around soft skills and their recognition. The meaning of the expression soft skill, let's say the definition of this expression, is not univocal. It often changes from context to context. This is why I think it advisable to clarify that I adopt and that we adopted in the work I am going to present, the definition elaborated by the Skill Panorama Glossary of the EU Centre for Vocational Training. According to this definition, soft skills are those non-technical skills that are cross-cutting across jobs and sectors, as opposed to hard skills that are job and sector specific. So soft skills are cross-cutting. This means that they can be transferred from a job to another one or from a sector to another one. For example, both engineers and teachers may need problem solving. So this soft skill can be transferred from the job of teaching to that of an engineer, which are of course very different jobs. Another important consideration is that soft skills develop both in formal and in non-formal and informal contexts. Other central concepts of this presentation are the identification and assessment of soft skills. So I will briefly explain what I mean when I use these words. So identification is a process intended to bring to light all the soft skills possessed by an individual, and its main aim is to empower the individual to increase his or her self-awareness on his or her potentialities, to increase this person's abilities in self-promotion, for example, during job interviews. Assessment is a process intended to measure the level of specific soft skills possessed by an individual. Its main aim is providing the individual with a concrete tool to spend when seeking for a job. So assessment is oriented toward the participation in selection processes or recruitment processes. Soft skills are increasingly relevant in contemporary economies. These are changing very rapidly, so individuals are expected and requested to be very flexible and to be able to adjust quickly to this, to the changes in economy, in the labor market. On-the-job training is increasingly important, and companies need workers who learn very quickly. So the ability to learn quickly is increasingly valued by companies. Businesses also have to frequently undertake reorganizations of their human resources to adjust to the changing market. If hard skills are difficult to transfer from a sector to another, soft skills, as we said, are highly transferable. So workers with strong soft skills are very useful for companies who often have to reorganize their human resources. So soft skills are very important in contemporary labor markets, but for migrants, this is even more true, because after migration, newcomers have to redesign their career. They cannot keep on with their old job, the job they did in their country of origin. They have to find a new job. And So they cannot often, they cannot reuse their hard skills. Their soft skills are highly transferable, so they can easily be transferred from their old job in the country of origin to the new job in the receiving country. For this reason, it is crucial to be aware, to know one's soft skills so as to spend them when seeking for a new job in the receiving country. It is also important to consider that both highly and low educated migrants may possess soft skills, because as we said, these might be developed also in non-formal and informal learning contexts. So this consideration is very relevant, mostly in a context such as Italy, where migrant education levels are lower than the EU average. So identification and assessment of soft skills are essential to enhance the employability of migrants, to increase their self-awareness, and also to showcase migrants' soft skills to potential employers so that they can decide whether or not to hire this person, migrant person. I'm going to illustrate now the work we carried out within the project Dimicome, a work, of course, revolving around the recognition of migrant soft skills. Dimicome is a project led by the ISMU Foundation, co-funded by the national project of the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund, implemented in 5 Italian regions. Actually, Dimicome is composed of several activities, but I'm going to present some activities developed within the framework of the second work package, which focuses on the valuing of migrant soft skills for, of course, for promoting their labor inclusion. We consulted 30 organizations, Italian organizations, dealing with the identification and assessment of migrant competencies. And we asked them to identify the main strengths and weaknesses of the methods and tools they used to identify and assess migrants' soft skills. First of all, they reported some difficulties. They said that usually migrants don't know the meaning of the expression soft skill, and for practitioners it is very difficult to explain this because of the linguistic barrier, because explaining the meaning of soft skills is actually very difficult, but also because sometimes practitioners don't know exactly themselves what this expression means. Another difficulty is that soft skills are culturally bound, so the same behavior may result to be very effective in a certain cultural context and inappropriate in another cultural context. So the meaning of a certain behavior, the interpretation in terms of skills of a certain behavior must be shared between migrant and practitioners so as to co-construct the meaning of this behavior. And this sharing process is, of course, also a learning process for both migrants and practitioners. And for migrants, it's important to understand that a certain behavior is very effective in their country of origin, but is not interpreted as appropriate in the receiving country. Another difficulty is that migrants usually urgently need to find a job, and they are willing to accept the first available job because they really need it in a short term. So their expectation when they approach an employment service or a similar service is to actually concretely find a job. On the contrary, practitioners think that the identification and assessment of soft skills strengthens and promotes the employability of an individual in the long term, helping this individual to find a job which is in line with his or her abilities. So practitioners and migrants have different objectives, and this means a lack of motivation on the part of the migrant, who understand that his objectives are not the same as those of the practitioner. And this is problematic because this inhibits the active involvement of migrants in this process, which needs to be actively participated by the individual to be the beneficiary, in order to be effective. The organizations we consulted suggested some strategies to overcome these difficulties, and on this basis, we elaborated some guidelines to improve the effectiveness of the identification and assessment of migrant soft skills. I will try to highlight the most salient points of these guidelines. First of all, we think that interventions for the identification and assessment of migrant soft skills should be part of a wider provision of support to encourage labor inclusion and career development. For example, interventions for the identification and assessment of soft skills should be integrated with ad hoc training, orientation for active job seeking, internships. In this way, migrants would understand that the whole measure has a concrete impact on their employability, and probably they would be more motivating in actively participating in the whole process. Moreover, identification and assessment are learning processes, so the relationship between the practitioner and the migrant is essential to produce learning. So standardized self-profiling tools are not very effective, at least they can be used, but within the framework of the relationship between migrant and practitioner. We think that each intervention for identifying and assessing soft skills should begin with a need assessment to understand, for example, why a person is looking for a job, what is the legal situation of this person, and whether it is necessary to network with other services to solve certain legal issues which may inhibit the finding of a job. Moreover, it is necessary to understand, for example, if the beneficiary has young children, so if it is necessary to activate childcare services to help this person take part in the identification and assessment process. Practitioners, of course, need to have strong intercultural and interlinguistic skills, and also they have to choose culturally sensitive methods and tools, which are also adequate to the individual's education level. For example, TEST is a tool which may be very effective in a monocultural context, but that can be totally ineffective with migrants, especially if they are low-educated migrants. Images are often used by practitioners to explain certain concepts to migrants or to communicate when a strong linguistic barrier is present. But we must consider that images, the same image, can convey different meanings in different cultural contexts. We think that in the identification of soft skills, pre-designed lists or definition of single soft skills shouldn't be used, because these lists and definitions are elaborated within an ethnocentric, within a certain cultural context. So they risk to be ethnocentric and to prevent the surfacing of certain soft skills or the co-construction of the meanings of soft skills. We think that the most suited method for bringing to light soft skills is oral autobiographical narration. we encourage language switching because it's easier to express a certain soft skill in the language where, I mean, characterizing the context where this soft skill was developed. Autobiographical narration must be used with caution when interacting, for example, with refugees that probably have traumatic past experiences. So autobiographical narration may recall, evoke negative emotion and secondary trauma. In this case, autobiographical narration may be associated with observation, behavioral observation in specific situation. But we must consider that there is a limit in this method because due to the specificity of each situation, the surfacing of certain soft skills could be prevented. In a restaurant kitchen, it is difficult, it is impossible, I mean, difficult to express soft skills linked, for example, to the sphere of care. Concerning assessment, I just want to repeat that its main function is showcasing the possessed soft skills to employers. So the point of view of employers is very important. It is necessary that employers can understand exactly how the assessment is carried out. And for this reason, we think that in this case, clear definitions of each soft skill assessed must be provided, along with a description of the behaviors associated with each level of this soft skill. And we also think that in this case, standardized methods and tools can be used because they increase the transparency of the assessment process. But of course, these methods must be used always within the framework of a trust relationship between practitioner and individual. I will conclude this presentation providing you the link to download the full document, the full guidelines. This is an Italian version. The English version is in progress. So if you're interested, you can write an email to me and I will be able to send you the English version of these guidelines soon, hopefully. So thanks a lot.